At my husband's funeral, a stranger whispered, "He's still alive." The lilies were too sweet, the kind of sweetness that sits on your tongue and won't leave even after the hymn ends. Somewhere behind me, a coffee urn hissed like a tired radiator. A string quartet was trying to be reverent about Ave Maria, and mostly succeeding. Daniel lay 3 feet away in a suit he hadn't worn since our niece's wedding. Hands folded, jaw set in that old Navy way that used to make me feel safe. On the program, he was 23 and grinning, frozen in a photograph that didn't know anything about mortgages or secrets. Elena's fingers dug half-moons into my arm every time she cried. On her other side, Rick did solemn like he'd practiced in a mirror, chin lowered, lips pursed, eyes damp on cue. Miss Porter from the funeral home drifted by with a clipboard that had more tabs than a Bible. "When you're ready," she whispered, meaning when I was ready to sign. The machine of loss runs on paper and pens that don't skip. The quartet retuned. The room sighed. A man I didn't know slipped onto the pew beside me without the usual murmured condolence. 40s, neat hair, dark suit that fit without trying. He didn't look at me. He kept his eyes on the casket like it might blink. "Don't sign anything," he said, voice level enough to hide inside the organ's swell. "He's not dead." The air went out of my ribs. I didn't turn. People notice a widow who turns. "You have the wrong pew," I murmured. He set a plain white card on my program, no name, just a number. On the back, 2 words in block letters, "Pacemaker logs." Then he stood and dissolved into the aisle like he'd never been there at all. "Mom," Elena whispered, "do you want to see him again?" I looked. The lighting was kind, the makeup kinder, the scar above his right eyebrow. "Here for transit. We'll make this as easy as possible." Daniel's name stared up at me from the death certificate. The middle name was wrong by a letter. I handed the pen back. "It's misspelled." "We'll file an amendment," she said, soothing as carpet. "It won't affect anything substantive." "His name is substantive," I said. "When it's right, we'll talk. And I want to see the identification photos." She hesitated. "Given the condition, we arranged verification through the family representative." Her eyes flicked toward Rick. "In photographs?" I asked. She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I excused myself to the restroom, locked a stall, and dialed the number on the card with hands that had folded 100 programs and refused to shake now. "Yes," the man said on the second ring. "You sat beside me." "I did. Call me Kellen. I'm with the insurer. I am not your friend, but I don't pay out on ghosts." "What do you have?" "Your husband's pacemaker pinged a tower 12 hours after the coroner's time of death," he said. "The wrecked VIN tracks to a salvage auction. The death certificate misspells his middle name. Give me consent for 30 days of telemetry, timestamps only, and do not authorize cremation. Don't sign anything. You'll get truth. It won't be gentle." "And what do you get?" "The difference between fraud and tragedy." "Diner on Maple," I said. 10 a.m. Back in the chapel, the quartet had moved to Pachelbel like nothing in the room had shifted. I found Ms. Porter. "Hold the cremation. No fire without my written authorization. I want the ID photos and corrected paperwork." She nodded, recalibrated. "Of course." "Mom," Elena said, brittle with grief and habit, "please don't make this harder." "I'm making it accurate," I said. At home, Porter called on speaker, her voice wrapping itself in carpet again. "Mrs. Hart, I'm so sorry to intrude tonight, but if we can get the release of remains and transit authorization, we can avoid additional storage fees. We'll handle all the logistics. We're scheduling cremation for tomorrow at 4. I stared at the page with Daniel's name spelled wrong in the middle, as if that letter were a loose nail I could catch my sweater on and unravel the day. "This is incorrect," I said, "and no cremation tomorrow." A pause, the kind that tries to be respectful and ends up being pressure. "We can file a correction," Ms. Porter offered. "It won't delay essentials." "It will delay fire," I said, "until it's accurate." Rick put on a frown that looked expensive. "Margaret, grief can make people fixate on details. The middle initial won't change a payout or a funeral. You need rest. Let us clear the underbrush." He slid another document forward. "Temporary conservator designation, just for estate communications. You retain full control. I'm just a legally recognized megaphone, so you don't have to pick up when numbers you don't recognize call." I read the small type, because small type is where verbs confess. Broad authority to endorse, convey, consent, assign. He'd boxed communications in yellow. But the clause didn't care about highlights. "Who identified Daniel?" I asked. "Mrs. Porter handled that," he said too quickly. "The remains are not suitable for a viewing." "Who identified him?" I repeated. Elena looked at the table. "They said it was better if you remembered him as he was," she murmured. "Rick handled the other thing." "The other thing is called identification," I said. "And my name was..." "Strictly, you think hard words sound soft when you put limited in front of them," I said. "The word after limited is authority. No." Elena's throat worked. "Mom, I'm not asking you to agree," I said. "I'm asking you to stop handing me pens for other people's sentences." He gathered the stack with exaggerated care, tucking corners like he owned the table. "Okay," he said, too bright. "Let's sleep on it. I'll stop by in the morning with coffee and just a couple of things to initial. We'll keep the train moving." "No train," I said. "No morning." After they left, the house exhaled. I opened the entry drawer and found the spare keys where I always had. They felt heavier than yesterday, and more honest. Ms. Porter texted, "We can hold cremation until Friday with a supervisor note. Storage fees apply." I replied, "Hold, I'll pay accuracy." Then I added, "Please send the identification chain in writing." A realtor email slid into my inbox uninvited. "We can have cleaners at noon tomorrow. We've installed a courtesy lockbox for your convenience." Courtesy is another word that thinks it's compassion. I closed the laptop. In the recipe book, under potato salad, I wrote 3 lines. Don't sign, correct the name, hold the fire. I underlined hold until the page dented. The house settled like a person choosing a side. Tomorrow there would be screens and timestamps and a stranger's number turning into a map. Tonight there was a kitchen table and a widow who could read. Morning came smelling like old coffee and lilies that had given up. I sat at the kitchen table with my recipe book open like a ledger and waited for a number that didn't belong to family. At 8:06, it lit the screen. "Consent cleared," Kellen said. No prelude, no apology. "Deviceko sent the last 30 days. Your husband's pacemaker pinged at 7:23 p.m., 11:02 p.m. Blue lights strobed against the dark. He tapped another tile. timestamp 7:53, a mile north under a toll gantry. Same make and model as yours. Watch the rear quarter. I leaned in. The image was grainy in the way truth is when it's still deciding whether to be brave. But the dent was exactly where ours lived, small, crescent-shaped, a parking lot apology that never got fixed. The plate was temporary, paper slapped behind plastic. We never had a temp plate. This is after he was supposed to be dead, I said, and felt something cold slide into place where panic had slept. Correct, Kellen said. And the tag number? Belongs to a grandmother in Ocala who drives a Civic and a grandson who thinks he's clever. Plate cloning. Happens more than you think. The tech rewound and played it again, this time frame by frame. A driver in a cap, head down, hands at 10 and 2 like a man trying not to attract attention by following rules he never used to. It was him without being proof. It was proof of a lie if you let the frame stack. We can pull more feeds, Kellen said, already moving. Fuel stations, frontage roads. Cameras tell stories when people won't. We left the control room for a cubicle farm that smelled like toner and resolve. A kid in a tie spun a monitor toward me. This is the toll read, he said, giddy the way the young get when a mystery lets them help. Temporary plate flagged, cross-referenced to a list of known clones, same lane as the earlier pass, same time window. Do you have the VIN on the burned car? I asked, and watched the kid glance at Kellen. We'll get to that, Kellen said, which told me he already had. Right now, I want you to see the sequence. Reported crash, then this pass, then more pings through the night from a bedside.
Rick's email arrived 5 minutes later. Gentle reminder, Keller and Pike can swing by with cleaners at noon. We've installed a courtesy lockbox for your convenience. I opened the door and saw it zip-tied to my rail like a barnacle. I got Robert's hammer, 2 swings, 1 trash bag. I sent Kellen a picture because small victories deserve witnesses. He replied with a timestamp and a sentence that didn't try to be comforting. Next stop is an IP address. Keep your door locked. Keep your pen to yourself. I set the broken lockbox pieces on the curb with the trash and went back inside to write 3 more lines beneath potato salad in my book. 7:53, toll. Temp plate. Dent doesn't lie. Device pings after death. The house felt steadier with the words in ink. So did I. While Kellen chased the plug my husband's heart had been whispering to, I chased paper. I logged into the joint account I'd ignored on purpose for years, the one we used for light bills and tires and the boring glue of a marriage. I didn't find a smoking gun. I found a string of matches. Tiny transfers, $9.99, $12.47, $18, to a new e-wallet I'd never seen. The description field might as well have winked. Top up. Every few days, those balances hopped again, out to a payment processor with a sunny name, then to Harbor Transfer Limited, an offshore that sounded like a ferry but smelled like bleach. I sent screenshots to Kellen with a subject line that made him reply fast. Your ghost pays his own allowance. He called from a stairwell. Pattern fits, he said. Small test transfers to keep a burner funded. Once the claim hits, they were going to send the rush through a shell. Harbor Transfer is a corridor. We've seen it. They, I said, and didn't make him say the other name. While we talked, my email chimed. Keller and Pike. It's linked to a prepaid card purchased at a pharmacy on Route 9, 2 miles from the Seabird Motel. top-ups match your bank debits. From there, microtransfers to Bayline Holdings and Harbor Transfer, then a test wire to Brisa Import-Export Limited, Belize. He said Belize like a punchline he didn't enjoy. "Can you freeze any of it?" I asked. Kellen shook his head once. "We're not the cops, but we can salt the lanes with notice. When the claim tries to shoot the gap, it'll hit paper." Rick called like a man who believes persistence is charm. "We need to move, Margaret," he said, voice warm as a sales floor. "Grief is a wound. Houses like yours become mausoleums if you let them. I booked a notary for tomorrow at 2. We can tidy up the POA, strictly limited, and sign a listing authorization. Fast is kind." "Fast is convenient," I said. "Kind is accurate." "Elena," he pivoted, handing the phone to my daughter without asking, weaponizing her breath. "Mom, please. It's too much house. Let Rick help." "I will not sign a power of attorney," I said evenly. "I will not list my house. I will not attend a notary appointment I did not make." Silence. Then a tempo shift, the old exasperation. "You're being stubborn," he said. I'm making this honest," I said, and hung up before he could put another word in my mouth. 2 envelopes arrived by courier just after lunch, both smelling like toner and impatience. One from Keller and Pike, net sheets, abridged math that makes a life look tidy in 4 columns. The other from a title company I hadn't hired, preliminary report. A soft knock of someone trying to see what could be moved without tripping an alarm. I bagged both with dish gloves and Ziplocs. In the recipe book, beneath potato salad, I added $9.99 drip to e-wallet, Harbor Transfer, pharmacy prepaid, Route 9. Bayline gets fed, stager at noon, tote refused, notary at 2, declined. Journey starts now. No, it doesn't. The house steadied under my feet, the way good language does. Outside, the jasmine hedge moved like punctuation. Tomorrow would bring a room number, a duffel, and a port road. Tonight, I kept my pen and my keys, and I let the money keep moving like smoke into a jar I was learning to label. By morning, I'd made peace with the idea that sometimes you win a day by asking for the right nouns. I called Miss Porter and asked for everything that would make paper act like a spine: chain of custody, property inventory, toe tag number, refrigeration log, the ME case number if one existed, and the name of the person who had authority to sign anything that required a verb. She invited me to her office, the small one that smells like toner and lilies, even when there aren't any. A woman with a supervisor badge, Danielle, of course, sat in. Miss Porter put her hands on a folder like it might jump. "You asked about identification," she began. "Given the condition..." "Condition isn't a substitute for process," I said. "Who identified him?" Danielle answered, choosing each word like it might be entered into evidence. "Your son-in-law, Mr. Richard Dawson, signed as family representative and agent for disposition under a statutory form. The identification was photographic." "Photographic," I repeated. "Not next of kin eyeballs." Miss Porter winced. "We do allow representative verification when we believe it would be traumatizing for a spouse." "You allow it," I said, "but the statute doesn't crown a representative over a spouse. Priority goes spouse first. I'm alive, I'm available, and I didn't delegate my eyes." Danielle slid a form across. Appointment of agent. Our real ring has a date scraped in, crooked by a jeweler who didn't approve of shortcuts. "That's not his," I said. Miss Porter drew in her breath and let it out like a person learning a yoga pose. "Mrs. Hart, I'm hearing you. We're entering a supervisor hold now. Cremation remains suspended. We'll note dispute of identity,
and source our own ME consult if needed. And the toe tag? I asked. She read it off. Tag 8125, matched to case file FH 23204. The death certificate will be corrected today. The clerk has already approved the amendment for the middle initial. Correction is nice, I said. Accuracy is kinder. I also want a written acknowledgement that no further actions will be taken on the remains without my written authorization or court order. Danielle nodded, already typing. You'll have that before you leave. There was a beat where everyone remembered we were talking about a person and not just a pile of nouns. Miss Porter spoke first. If you want a controlled viewing, hands only or partial, so that you, not a representative, can say yes or no, we can arrange something respectful. I want science, I said. Then I want 5 minutes with whatever truth science brings. On cue, Harris called. ME will courier a household DNA kit this afternoon, he said. Toothbrush or hairbrush, we'll compare to the decedent. Lab's ready to run it. Miss Porter, hearing enough to follow, offered a quiet nod. We'll refrigerate until the hold lifts and coordinate with the ME. And Mrs. Hart. We will be reviewing our SOP. She glanced at Danielle. Photographic identification without spousal consent shouldn't have happened. It did, I said. Now we fix forward. On my way out, a junior staffer tried to hand me a brochure. Grief moves faster with help, showing a woman wrapped in a taupe throw. I took it and bagged it at home with the stager. Maya called just after 10 with the sound of a printer in the background. 2 warrants signed, she said. Seabird Motel, room 212, and Bayline Storage Unit, 17B. Harris is en route. You don't need to be anywhere near either. You do need to keep your door shut. I kept it shut and let the day come to me over the phone like a police scanner for civilians. Harris first. Seabird. Manager unlocked. We're in. I could hear the rubbery hush of motel carpet and the too loud HVAC through his words. Bedside table has a Deviceco base. Serial matches your pairing number. Painter's tape residue on the edge. Blue. Coffee cup half drunk. Lid dated yesterday. We're bagging it for prints and DNA. Bathroom? I asked, surprising both of us with how calm the word sounded. Razor in the trash. He said, hair in the sink trap, travel-size deodorant, your brand, your scent. He added, and I could hear the dry attempt at kindness. Receipt in a bin, pharmacy on Route 9, $200 prepaid reload, timestamp, 10:11 a.m., yesterday. Kellen cut in from the storage facility, like a second radio channel. Bayline, 17B, under Judge's Key. He said, unit opens on a breath of cheap plastic and lies. On top, a manila envelope labeled KD 2P. Inside, an appointment card for Karen Dawson, Notary Public, today at 2. Under that, a blank appointment of agent to control disposition form with your line pre-highlighted and your name typed wrong in the way clerks never get wrong. Paper shuffled. Whiteboard on the back wall. KD 2P stamp, underlined. Seabird, cash, bridge 7. A sketch map to the port with an arrow, like a child's pirate drawing. Harris again. We've got text threads on the phone left under the mattress. Burner, naturally. Top up done. KD 2 p.m. Then go south. B. We'll pull it through forensics. Clothes? I asked. You had it yesterday. Kellen kept reading the Bayline inventory like an accountant discovering poetry against his will. Auction receipt for flood-damaged car, Tampa salvage pool, purchased by Bayline Holdings. A thumb drive labeled B routes that I'm dying to hand to Maya. 3 burner phones, one still warm enough to give us a day's worth of text without a fight. And paper again. A Keller and Pike staging work order copy with Rick's signature and the same bubbly font that gave you hives. Any link to an actual payment? I asked. Last 4 of a card? Deposit slip for the storage unit, he said. Cash, but the leaseholder is Bayline. Emergency contact number, Rick's cell, ending in 42. Silence on all 3 lines, the kind that isn't shock so much as confirmation laying down roots. I called Elena because whatever else we were still the 2 people who had lived with the same man long enough to hear when his shoes hit the hall. There were warrants, I said. They found the Deviceco base in the motel. His razor, hair in the drain. They found a notary appointment card for Karen, a whiteboard with KD 2P stamp underlined, the ring in an envelope, no engraving. He's dead, she said, but the sentence lacked oxygen. Mom, please, grief makes. Hair in a motel sink doesn't, I said. A map to the port doesn't. An appointment with your husband's aunt at 2 o'clock today doesn't. A storage lease with Rick's number scrawled on it doesn't. She went very quiet, then reached for the rope she knew. Rick is trying to help. He's been the only one keeping. He ordered a stager to my porch, I said. He signed a family agent form without me. He booked a notary for a power of attorney I didn't ask for. He put his number on a shell company storage lease tied to a salvage car. You can love him and still say those sentences out loud. I don't know what to do. Elena arrived in a storm that didn't use rain. Hair back, keys clutched like a weapon, cheeks raw from a kind of crying that pretends it's not. She didn't sit. She paced the length of the kitchen like she was wearing down a path I wouldn't cross. Rick says you're refusing everything. She started, words tight. He says you're letting some insurance guy fill your head. He says you smashed a lockbox and threatened to stage her. Mom, this isn't you. This is exactly me, I said, and set a stack of paper on the table as gently as I used to set her lunchbox. Sit. She didn't, so I talked to her standing. 2 warrants executed today. Seabird Motel, room 212, your father's pacemaker base on the nightstand, serial matched, painter's tape on the edge, hair in the sink trap, razor in the trash, pharmacy receipt for a prepaid reload 2 miles down Route 9. Bayline storage, Unit 17B, a whiteboard that says KD, 2P stamp, and Seabird, cash, bridge, 7. An appointment card for Karen at 2. A coin envelope with a thin 14K ring that is not his, no crooked engraving. She flinched at Karen's name, then recovered into the line she'd rehearsed somewhere else. Mom, you're spinning. He's dead. People grieve strangely. You've always been careful. I finished for her. Yes. Careful is not paranoia. And dead men don't shave at a motel and tape their heart to a charger. Her mouth made a small, stubborn line. Rick has been the only one keeping the trains moving. He handled the identification because they said it would traumatize you. He booked help because you won't help yourself. He is trying to become me on paper. I said. I slid the next document forward. This is an appointment of agent to control disposition, he presented to the funeral home. My line is blank. He signed as family representative. Another page. I want to deny a fraud out of survival. Her phone buzzed on the counter, face down, the way people put things when they know they'll hurt if they look. The screen flashed, unknown caller, and then went dark. It buzzed again. Again. She turned it over with 2 fingers like it might bite. Play the voicemail, I said. She hesitated, then tapped. Put it on speaker. Set it face down like a live thing. His voice walked into my kitchen like he'd never left. Lainey, Mom's not herself. You know how she gets. You and Rick need to help her make the hard decisions. Don't let her stall. It's not good for her. Forms in the blue folder. Tell Rick to call Keller and Pike first thing. Don't call me back. I'm dealing with something. I love you. Do the right thing. The message ended. The room did not. Elena stood very still, then exhaled a laugh that wasn't humor. He told me to do the right thing, she said. I think this is it.
and I think it's not the one he meant." Something loosened in her face without breaking it. She sat, at last. I slid a mug toward her. She wrapped both hands around it even though it was empty, the way people do when they need to feel something hold. "I don't know what to do," she said, small, and for a second I saw her at 8 with skinned knees she pretended didn't sting. "Do nothing," I said. "That's the part of the plan they didn't account for." She nodded, mechanical first, then with understanding. "He said there's a notary at 2, she murmured. "Karen. I was supposed to drive him. He said it would make everything cleaner." "You're not going," I said. "You're not picking up. You're not answering the door. If he shows up here, you'll be behind me." She pressed her lips together. "He'll be furious." "He already is," I said. "Anger is a tool he uses." Pelican case inside. Warrant covers it. Metal clicked. Tape ripped. Silence stretched. 2 passports, he said. Same face, different names. One Daniel Hale, one Thomas Reed. Both recent issue, good for scanners that don't have a sense of humor. Also a laminated visitor pass for the port, contractor day access. Photo looks like it was taken in a hallway. "Tickets?" I asked. "Not tickets. A printout of a cargo schedule with 3 sailings circled. Night departures. One highlighted. Seabird berth, midnight tonight. Someone wrote moonless in the margin like a man who watches movies." Kellen took over, his voice doing that satisfied thing when paper coughs up a confession. "We dumped the burners. 1 is noise, spam and top-up confirmations. 2 holds the conversations. Contact saved as B keeps saying, 'When payout hits, you settle my end.' Another saved as M is either a girlfriend or a fan. She got as far as, 'I can't wait for the water,' before he stopped answering. The important thread, KD2P then Seabird S Gate, Bridge 7, cash only, no phones." "Seabird's South Gate," Harris translated. "Bridge 7 is the pedestrian crossover. The map he drew matches." I set my hand on the table to steady the life that was trying to outrun my chest. So the plan was, notarize a power of attorney with Karen at 2, push paper hard, then walk to a boat at midnight. More or less, Maya said, suddenly on the line, as if a speakerphone could be a war room. 2 tracks. 1, we wire Karen's office and let Rick bring his own rope. 2, we put eyes on the port tonight. Uniforms won't help. He'll smell them. We'll use port police plainclothes and cameras. "Do you need me anywhere?" I asked, already knowing the answer. It still helps to hear it. "No," Maya said. "If there's a scene, it's because someone chose. And if anyone with a clipboard says courtesy or closure, tell them we do both on our own schedule." He grinned. "I'll practice my neighborly stare." Afternoon moved like a chess clock, calm until it clicks. Harris texted a photo. The Pelican case innards laid out on a gray table. 2 passports, the visitor pass, a cheap phone with tape over the camera dot, the cargo schedule with moonless underlined twice. "All bagged, all logged," he wrote. "Judge signed an addendum for the bank box key we found taped under the whiteboard tray. Harbor credit. We'll see if tomorrow has a surprise." "Let tomorrow surprise tomorrow," I wrote back. "Today has enough nouns." At 1:36, Maya sent. "Karen's office wired. Audio, video. We have a warrant in an envelope next door. If he signs, we serve. If he tries to sign, we serve. If he talks, we record. If he breathes wrong, we note it." I pictured Karen's ficus. The cheap framed certificate. The stamp she wasn't worthy of. And the little bell on the door that would ring for a man who thought paper was his servant. Elena padded into the kitchen, hair in a knot, eyes finally not begging. "I put Dr. Lee's list on my lock screen," she said, showing me. "Say no without an essay. Don't carry someone else's verbs. She smiled, small and sharp. I'm not going to Karen's. I know, I said. You already decided. At 2:07, my phone lit with Harris. He's here. Then, seconds later, he brought POA template pre-filled. Your name typed wrong. Box highlighted communications only. Karen asked for ID. He gave the visitor pass. She asked whose benefit. He said family. A beat. We rolled. Lights on. Police, hands visible. Rick tried to pocket the stamp. We have him. I let out a breath I didn't know I was booking. Maya followed with, charge sheet will read, attempted fraud, conspiracy, interference with.
Through the glass, I watched without being in the room, the way I've learned to do this week. Present, not prop. Harris started soft. State your name for the record. Richard Dawson, he said, jaw tight. I'm here as family. As a suspect, Maya corrected, pleasant as a librarian. She slid the POA template across. Whose name is typed here? Spell it. He didn't look down. Margaret Hart. Middle initial? Benton asked, mild. Rick hesitated a blink too long. A. It's E, Maya said, pen hovering. And this line, limited to communications. Why is the clause below it granting authority to endorse, convey, assign, and otherwise dispose left intact? Rick went for injured. You people are making this complicated. She's a widow. We're trying to keep her from drowning in paper. By holding her head under? Benton asked, almost curious. He tapped the notary block. Why Karen? She's family, Rick said. It's easy. Maya's tone didn't change. And when the money hits, what happens? He exhaled, exasperated, slipping into the script he trusted. When the money hits, He stopped, bit his lip, looked at the camera like it had teeth. I want a lawyer. You have one, Maya said, and stood. And we have your sentence. Outside, Karen was already crying. A quiet, embarrassed crying that belongs to people who finally hear their own verbs out loud. I thought I was helping, she said to Harris, who didn't disagree and didn't agree. He took her stamp in a clear bag instead. Process doesn't need to scold. It needs to log. Back home, we turned the house into a waiting room for midnight. Kellen texted updates like mileposts. Port PD briefed. Plainclothes on Southgate and Bridge 7. Cameras active, no uniforms, no announcements. Harris added, visitor pass logs list him twice last month. Because everyone asks a mother for something, and I wanted to practice not volunteering mine. Keep not signing, he said. Keep your phone on. Keep soup warm. At 10, John took the porch with his decoy and his stare. You'll get your call, he said, knocking his whittling knife against the wood with a click that steadied the night. I'll watch your street breathe. By 11, the house had found a rhythm. Elena rinsing mugs, me setting my pen down on the recipe book, the lamp in the hall throwing its coin of light just so. Outside, a car rolled past too slow, realized it couldn't get what it came for, and sped up without us. The jasmine hedge moved like a congregation waiting for an amen. At 11:38, Harris texted, blue cap on camera at South Gate, duffel, walking. A beat. He just touched his left ear. I sat down without thinking, the way you sit when a sentence arrives. Elena put her hand over mine like she'd been practicing it all week. We didn't speak. We listened to the house. Clock tick. Fridge hum. The tiny creak in the hallway floorboard that always complains about night shoes. At 11:52, Kellen. Approaching Bridge 7. 2 ahead, 1 behind. Hands in pockets. He's looking for uniforms that aren't there. A second later, he's checking his phone for a time he thinks he can outrun. There's a ferry horn on the river. He thinks it's for him. My phone buzzed with a number that would pay for 100 casseroles if I answered. I let it go to voicemail without letting my pulse go anywhere. Elena's phone lit, too. She put it face down like we were burying a trick. The lamp in the hall burned its faithful circle. The house held. At 11:59, Harris again. He's at the fence. Bruno's there. Cash visible. Plain clothes closing. Wait. It tripped. I pictured the south gate's chain link trembling back into place, the river swallowing the plan he'd spelled in permanent marker. Did he say anything? I asked. 2 sentences and a habit, Harris said. He touched his left ear and said, "He told me she'd sign." Then he asked if county still serves oatmeal for breakfast. We answered only the second one. I hung up and listened to the house breathe like it had carried a weight up the stairs and finally sat down. Elena leaned in the doorway, hair loose, eyes open in a way I hadn't seen since the lilies. "He said you'd sign," she repeated softly, tasting the lie that had been wrapped in love her whole life. "Not anymore," she added, and I wanted to underline it in the air. Morning arrived the way mornings do when a storm finally admits it spent itself. Dishes that got clean, a lamp that did its job, a porch that didn't need guarding. At 9, the courthouse sluiced us all into rooms that sort lives into piles. Harris walked us through a side door, past a vending machine that made worse coffee than grief deserves. Kellen joined, suit still neat after a night in a car. Maya already flipping to the right tab in a stack that rode her arm like a second spine. 2 defendants, 2 tracks, Maya said, voice clear as a clean ledger. Mr. Dawson, attempted fraud, conspiracy, interference with a court order, notary misconduct under administrative review. Mr. Hart, insurance fraud, filing a false death report, conspiracy. We'll ask bond with conditions, GPS, passport surrender, no contact with you or your property, and, this is important, no access to any account with your name on it, even to assist. Rick came in first, khaki smug, jaw defiant. His lawyer tried to make family confusion do the work of verbs. Judge Caldwell's pen clicked once and wrote 75 secured. My eyes have had enough verbs. Kellen peeled off to go salt more accounts with notices that startle greed under fluorescent light. Harris fielded a call, nodded, covered the receiver. ME lab, he said. Mitochondrial comparison to the toothbrush? The man in their cooler is not your husband. We're running prints against missing persons. We'll have a name before the weekends. Bring his sister a chair when you call her, I said. Tell her we'll stand with her 5 minutes without speeches. Ms. Porter texted just after noon. Cremation permanently suspended. Supervisor notation entered. Spouse authorization required. SOP revised. No photographic identification without spouse or court. I sent back thank you and meant it like bread. Elena walked beside me to the car. Posture changed in small ways that matter. Dr. Lee can see me Tuesday, she said. I wrote her a sentence. Stop apologizing for other people's decisions. I put it under my toothbrush. Good museum, I said. Back home, we ate soup that didn't need to be a metaphor. John knocked, tipped his cap, reported that the porch had behaved itself. He handed me a folded sheet of paper, a printout of a news crawl with no names and all the nouns. Charges filed. Investigation ongoing. Grief is not a legal strategy. He'd underlined the last line in pencil. You said it first, he said.
Nice to hear the city catching up. That afternoon, Maya called with the sentence I'd been hoping for and dreading equally. "His counsel wants to talk, please," she said. "We'll insist on allocution, names, dates, verbs, and on restitution to systems his lie bent. The lab, the funeral home, the patrol car that sat on your block. Community service at the VA and the senior center. No contact, no performance."
And for the first time in a month, spoke sentences that didn't try to buy anything. "I bought a flood-damaged vehicle through Bayline Holdings," he said. "I left my pacemaker base at a motel and taped it to the nightstand with painter's tape. I asked my son-in-law to push paperwork, power of attorney, listing authority, so a claim would pay out and I could walk to a ship. I knew my wife would not sign. I told my daughter to do the right thing, meaning hurry her." Maya asked for nouns and dates. He gave them. She pointed to the whiteboard photo. "Who wrote KD 2-piece stamp?" "I did," he said, small. "Who misspelled your middle name on the death certificate?" "Rick," he said, smaller. His lawyer touched his sleeve, the universal signal to stop adding weight to his own sentence. Judge Caldwell leaned forward. "Mr. Hart, you did not panic. You planned. People repair. Courts do consequence. We'll see you back for sentencing. Between now and then, cooperate fully. And do not try to audition remorse. Use nouns." Elena sat beside me with her hands folded and her eyes clear. No sobbing, no denial. When the clerk called the next case, she whispered, "He made me into a decoy." Not a question, a diagnosis. I nodded and squeezed her fingers, surprised and grateful that they squeezed back. Rick tried theater before the law took away his props. At his motions hearing, his counsel argued that pacemaker logs were invasive, the motel footage grainy, the whiteboard a brainstorm. Benton, Maya's colleague with the boot-heel voice, said telemetry, chain of custody, and consciousness of guilt, like he was reading a bedtime story to a jury that hadn't been seated yet. Judge Caldwell admitted the logs, the footage, the whiteboard. "If the defendant didn't want his brainstorm read aloud," she said, dry as old paper, "he shouldn't have written crimes in permanent marker." The next morning, Rick pled to what had corners and a memo tacked to their office printer. "We do not install lockboxes without documented owner consent." The assistant who played courier pled to a misdemeanor and began delivering coffee to the DA's fraud unit on Fridays. Hustle and harm are different nouns. He's learning the grammar by carrying cups. The funeral home held a staff review that didn't ask for my attendance and got it anyway. Miss Porter stood at the front with a handout labeled SOP Revision and the steadiness she'd earned. "No more photographic identification without spouse or court," she said. "Representative authority will be verified with the spouse present, in person or on live video. Holds will be documented with timestamps. Corrections to vital records are priority, not afterthought." The porter in the back said, "We called convenience compassion." No one argued. They wrote it down. Harris called that afternoon with a name for the man someone tried to burn out of my life. "Miguel Avila," he said. "His sister identified him. The ME will release to their family. Miss Porter asked if you'd attend when the marker goes in. 5 minutes. No microphone." "Yes," I said. It felt like putting a chair back where it belonged. Back home, Rena brought by a shoebox with my name and Hold printed on the lid. 3 letters from him so far. She said, "We're keeping them closed until you decide you read measurements, not commands." Elena stood in the doorway listening and didn't flinch. "I don't want to read anything that makes me smaller," she said. "Not today." "Good sentence," Rena answered, leaving us with pamphlets about restitution that didn't try to be poetry. News crawls ran beneath lunchtime shows. No names, just nouns. Charges filed. Investigation ongoing. Grief is not a legal strategy. John printed one and underlined that last line in pencil, leaving it on my porch like a benediction. That night, Elena sat at the table and wrote a single-page letter to herself in block letters, then read it aloud. Stop, not speeches. No contact with me or Elena. A sentence measured more by calendar than concrete, if he kept his end of cooperation. He said, "Yes, Your Honor," like a man who'd found the right size for a word. Rick's turn came with less dignity and more metal. He took the plea he'd already worn thin, accepted the charges that had corners, and got a term the court could say out loud without hating itself. Conditions mirrored, remorse optional only in his head. Karen sat in the back in civilian clothes and quietly learned how to be a citizen again without a stamp. After, Rena slid a form toward me, restitution election, and a pen I didn't need. "You can accept disbursements directly," she said, "or redirect." I wrote in my square hand, "Direct any restitution aimed at me to the Senior Center's Credit Freeze Program and to Clinic's Shredder and Laminator Fund. Don't cut a check for sadness. Buy paper and tables." Rena smiled like the best kind of witness. "Courts like budgets," she said. "So do I." Miguel's marker went in the following Tuesday, a small stone that made a big lie honest. His sister came with a photo and a steeled spine. We stood on the back rise by the hedges where wind behaves. 5 minutes and no microphones. "We return what we borrowed," I said, because that sentence had done good work and could do it again. Ms. Porter nodded, the kind of nod that says a building has a better habit now. Clinic moved upstairs for good. John's laminated nope list grew a second column. Say it kindly. Say it again. Hang up. Mrs. Green brought her kazoo and a story that made the room wheeze. Julie with an IE labeled file boxes like a one-woman archive. Rena taught 3 grandmothers to freeze their credit in under 15 minutes and made them promise to brag about it. We added a sign to the door, hashtag at meta, pause, _sex, 0.05. A notary training video somewhere used Karen's story without saying Karen's name. None of that is glamorous. All of it is the point. On a Sunday that tasted like pancakes again, Elena and I ate on the back steps, while the jasmine threatened to bloom and then decided to wait, which felt appropriate. John waved from his porch with a newspaper under his arm and a coffee that could strip paint. "You did it," he called. I shook my head. "We did paper," I called back. He tipped his cap like we'd invented it. Inside, I took the protective orders off the lighthouse and slid them into a file labeled house. I left my victim's statement under the magnet as a souvenir for my spine and sealed 2 envelopes with checks headed to the Senior Center and Clinic. Money doesn't fix what isn't broken into pieces. It buys tables and ink and lamination. It buys yeses you can hold. Before bed, I opened the recipe book to potato salad and wrote the last entry that belongs to this story. Sentences, not grand gestures. Restitution redirected. Miguel's name in stone. Clinic upstairs. Nope. Laminated. Elena chose Tuesdays and her own verbs. Letters held. SOPs fixed. I am not a prop, not a project, not a plan. I am Margaret Hart. The only authorization I sign today is for myself. I closed the book. The lamp in the hall threw its coin of light. The house breathed. I matched it. Spring didn't arrive like a miracle. It arrived like a habit. Windows latched, stove off, pen cacked, keys on their hook, paper in its place, Mame in mine.